Okay, second part of Good Oak within Aldo Leopold Sand County Almanac. It took only a dozen pulls of the saw to transect the few years of our ownership, during which we had learned to love and cherish this farm. Abruptly, we began to cut the years of our predecessor, the bootlegger, who hated this farm, skinned it of residual fertility, burned its farmhouse, threw it back into the lap of the county with delinquent taxes to boot, and then disappeared among the landless anonymities of the Great Depression. Yet the oak had laid down good wood for him. His sawdust was as fragrant, as sound, and as pink as our own. An oak is no respecter of persons. The reign of the bootlegger ended sometime during the Dust Bowl drought of 1936, 1934, 1933, and 1930. Oak smoke from his still and peat from burning marshland must have clouded the sun in those years, and alphabetical conservation was abroad in the land. But the sawdust shows no change. Rest, cries the chief sawyer, and we pause for breath. Now our saw bites into the 1920s, the Babbitttian decade, when everything grew bigger and better and heedlessness and arrogance, until 1929, when the stock markets crumbled. If the oak heard them fall, the wood gives no sign, nor did it heed the legislature's several protestations for love for trees, a national forest, and a forest crop law in 1927. A great refuge on the upper Mississippi bottomlands in 1924, and a new forest policy in 1921. Neither did it notice the demise of the state's last marten in 1925, or the arrival of the first starling in 1923. In March 1922, the big sleet tore the neighboring elms limb to limb, but there is no sign of damage in our tree. What is a ton of ice, more or less, to a good oak? Rest, cries the chief sawyer, and we pause for breath. Now the saw bites into 1910 to 1920, the decade of the drainage dream, when steam shovels sucked dry the marshes of central Wisconsin to make farms, and made ash heaps instead. Our marsh escaped, not because of any caution or forbearance among the engineers, but because the river floods it each April, and did so with a vengeance, perhaps a defensive vengeance, in the years 1913 and 1916. The oak laid on wood just the same, even in 1915 when the Supreme Court abolished the state forests of Governor Philip, pontificated that state forestry is not a good business position. It did not occur to the governor that there might be more than one definition of what is good, and even of what is business. It did not occur to him that while the courts were writing one definition of goodness in the law books, fires were writing quite another one in the face of the land. Perhaps to be a governor one must be free from doubt on such matters. While forestry receded during this decade, game conservation advanced. In 1916, pheasants became successfully established in Waukesha County. In 1915, a federal law prohibited spring shooting. In 1913, a state game farm was started. In 1912, a buck law protected female deer. In 1911, an epidemic of refuges spread over the state. Refuge became a holy word. But the oak took no heed. Rest, cries the chief sawyer. And we pause for breath. Now we cut 1910, when a great university president published a book on conservation. A great sawfly epidemic killed millions of tamaracks. A great drought burned the pineries, and a great dredge drained Horicon Marsh. We cut in 1909, when smelt were first planted in the Great Lakes, and when a wet summer induced the legislature to cut the forest fire appropriations. We cut 1908, a dry year when the forest burned fiercely, and Wisconsin partly, with its last cougar. We cut 1907, when a wandering lynx, looking in the wrong direction for the promised land, ended his career among the farms of Dane County. We cut 1906, when the first state forester took office, and fires burned 17,000 acres in these sand counties. We cut 1905, when a great flight of goshawks came out of the north and ate up the local grouse. They no doubt perched in this tree to eat some of mine. We cut 1902 and 3, a winter of bitter cold. 1901, which brought the most intense drought of record, rainfall only 17 inches. 1900, a centennial year of hope, of prayer, and the usual annual ring of oak. Rest, cries the chief sawyer, and we pause for a breath.